Welcome to the Xbox Podcast. My name is Larry Herb, Xbox Live's Major Nelson. I gotta get Jeff in here. Jeffrey, are you there?
What?
There you are. There you are. Hold on. I brought you full screen. I want to talk.
I'm taking over the show. Oh, I lost it.
This is so much show. We have so much show here. We've got we almost have a half dozen interviews, don't we?
Bursting at the seams. It's a busy week, Larry. It's maybe the first busy week in gaming of the year so far, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. Tell my calendar that, because for the past 3 weeks, it looks like it's been pretty busy.
Wow.
But it's as always, it's good to see you. It's been a big week around Xbox as always.
It has. I heard you had the Korean chicken sandwich over at Shake Shack.
No, I never. I told you I was going to have it. You're the one that had it. I didn't have it.
I did. Wait. Okay. I feel like everyone's doing a chicken sandwich right now.
You know what?
I'm derailing this immediately. Sorry.
Chicken wars are my favorite wars. I'll just say
true. Hamburgers. I don't deal with hamburgers anymore. But so what have you been playing?
Oh boy, you can kind of see it a little bit behind me. I've been hitmanning it. Sea of Thieves, Elder Scrolls Online. I have an interview later on for that. So those are really, but I've been playing the Let's Get a Bunch of Guests on the Show game, which is it's a multiplayer game, and it's a lot of fun.
It's true. It is true. And you can bring in people from all over the world, which is like the best part of it, right?
Yeah. We've got, so should we go through the interviews we have this show before we get into it, or
Sure.
should we wait on that?
Why don't we do that?
You've got, because you held a ninja star to my head, we've got Yakuza.
There's really no throwing stars in the game, but yes.
But no, we have Scott Schwickartis back on the show, and of course that's your interview, so I step back and let you guys shine.
I appreciate that.
And
let me do my Yakuza thing.
And why do we have him on?
We have him on because the Yakuza collection, that means 3, 4, and 5, are all available now on Xbox through Xbox Game Pass and also on Windows 10. And we got to know what to expect.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn that.
So then we have, what else do we have? We've got Rich Lambert's going to stop by about Elder Scrolls Online. That's a big news earlier this week. We'll talk to him. And then, going to turn the lights down. Things are going to get a little scary. Jeff is going to interview the Bloober team about the Medium exclusive on Xbox Game Pass, which is out this week.
Here's the thing about Bloober Team. With a name like Bloober Team, you would think they would make like Slime Rancher or something, like some like happy rainbow colored, platforming game or something like that. And no, they make exclusively psychological horror games like Layers of Fear, Observer, Blair Witch from last year, and now the Medium, which is now available. So it's disturbing. It's quite disturbing.
We've got that. We'll do that interview, and then if that's not enough,
we want more.
We're going to peel back the layer a little bit, and we're going to show you behind the scenes a little bit about Xbox, this PlayFab, which is a technology, a suite of technologies that we have at Microsoft here to enable game developers to do everything from matchmaking to messaging to storage to achievements, all these things. We're going to talk to Jamie Gortzman, who's the head of that team, and then we're going to talk to a couple other developers about how they use PlayFab. So if you're a game developer or budding game developer, you just want to kind of maybe look behind the scenes, then we're gonna talk about that. So we've got a lot of show for you today. So thank you for bearing with us, and thank you for bearing
with us. We're bringing these things. This is good. It's a little different instead of our usual BS where we're talking about chicken sandwiches. Why did you even bring that up?
Why did I even bring that? I don't know. Chicken sandwiches. So we've got that. Hey, look what I've got here, Jeff. Let me show you something. Mm-hmm. This is actually pretty interesting. I don't know if you're able to see this little. So that is a robust
container around your controller.
That is my Android phone for Android cloud gaming, so you can play all the Game Pass games on there. And then this is a special clip, and then this goes right around the Xbox controllers from our good friends at OtterBox. And I think you've got.
Are we sponsored this week?
Yeah. Well, no, we're not. We kind of are, but we've done a great partnership with OtterBox. They've got.
Look at that.
Yeah, they've got this really cool case that you can buy. It's the gaming carry case, and then of course inside of it is a bunch of way to strap your controller in. They've got the gaming clip, which I showed you up here. I feel like I'm showcasing it. The gaming clip, and then go ahead.
Well, do you remember like when I first started working here back in 2013? And
like
we
it was yesterday,
around,
Jeffrey.
We went to Puerto Rico, and we went to a lot of different places. We opened up a store in upstate New York, and I was lugging around the OG Xbox One.
Yep.
and it couldn't fit in my backpack, and so I had a special backpack for it and all. And now you can bring like hundreds of games in that little. Get that little case out. Lift that little case again. The fact that you can bring,
I mean,
like the all the controller's the biggest part of it, and
Right.
and you can bring all these games with you is pretty great.
has a little handle.
Now you just have to be able to go somewhere, but
Right. It's
when we get there.
This is for the stylish gamer. So this is the
Well, it looks rugged. It's got the handle. It looks like
and it's got this interesting little thing up at the top here that you can actually. It looks like you can set your
Set the phone
on.
down.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can got a little easel action going on there. So that's kind of cool.
I mean, we've all been to the airport and we've seen people with like these.
Have we though, Jeffrey?
portable
Have we been to the airport?
Not recently, but in Seattle, at least you would always see like someone playing, while waiting for their flight with like a large portable screen. And now you can just do it with your phone.
So they've got a whole gaming line, OtterBox gaming line, and we're working closely with them. They've got all the things I just showed. They also have a case for your phone, of course, kind of like a regular normal case that you'd see. But they also have gaming glass privacy guard, which I didn't even think about. This is so nobody else, those privacy shields that go over computers. It's one of those.
Yeah. I've definitely been on the plane and I'm playing Switch and it's like a more violent game. And I'm like, maybe everyone shouldn't see this game.
I've seen you because you're playing it. You kind of start cheating towards the window.
Yeah, it's like someone's getting murdered in this cutscene. Okay, yes. So it's probably good. Also, when you're traveling, you want to really protect your monitor. Everyone doesn't need to see your business.
What else did they sent me a whole bunch of stuff. Oh yeah, here's
oh wow. So there's a box of OtterBox stuff.
There's the actual, there's the actual phone case if you just want to go with the phone case as well. This is this right here I think is there's the privacy shield, so you kind of can't, right? So when you turn it sideways, people can't quite see what you're playing.
Sometimes you're watching Netflix or something just out while you're waiting for something, and people judge your choices. I'm like, look, I'm watching, was it Bremerton?
Are you watching that? Really?
No, my wife is, and I went upstairs.
Well, wait a minute. You are no stranger to costume dramas. Let's be clear.
No, hardly. But I didn't realize the Victorian era was so
tawdry.
Randy, yeah, tawdry.
Randy, that's perfect.
Trying to be in English. Yeah. Anyway, so why don't we get to these, huh?
Yeah, let's do that.
Where do we want to go first? Do we want to spin the globe and land somewhere?
You know what? I have to start. We've got to talk about the medium, and you did such a great interview with that. So I think it's what we should do is we should start with that. We'll talk to Team Bloober. We'll get in here. Jeff did a great interview with them. You'll learn more about the medium, available on Xbox Game Pass right now, and it looks amazing. So let's take a look.
Over the past 5 years, no studio has been more synonymous with horror than Bloober Team out of Poland. We've seen games like Layers of Fear, Blair Witch, and now, out this week, The Medium. So I'm very happy to be joined live from Poland, from Krakow, by two of our friends that we saw at launch, Wojciech Pieko and Jacek Zemba from Krakow from Bloober Team. Congrats on launch, guys.
Thank you very much. And of course, thank you for having us here. Yeah. We waited for you after the last time. So thank you. Thanks again.
Yeah.
It's great to see you. So you launched Observer 2 months ago, and here we are with the first fully exclusive Xbox Series X and S game. The first game that only launches via Series X and Series X. The first true next-gen game on Xbox. Also on PC, and of course available through Xbox Game Pass. Launching now. How do you guys feel?
Yeah, of course, we are super excited about the launch. Yes, so we were, preparing the game for like 4 years. This, of course, iteration of the medium, because the idea was here in the company even before we start working at Bloober. Yes, so for us, it's like every launch is a special moment. Yes, so we are very happy. We can, finally share our game with the audience, with the players. So. And of course, we hope that you will have a lot of fun playing the medium.
And I have been enjoying the game. Fun is maybe not the right word. Maybe it's tense, a lot of tension. I've been playing several hours into the game, and I think it's important to talk about what type of scary game this is. This is not jump scares, but really, Bloober Team is masters of psychological horror. So it's a little, it's a little bit different. It involves what's in people's heads in many ways. So I would love for you to talk about, for those who have played Layers of Fear, who played Blair Witch, how the medium is different in terms of just tone and just how this is really a jump up for the studio in general.
I think the tone maybe like similar. It's still like psychological horror, yeah, but because of the first-person perspective, dual worlds at the same time, and crazy surrealistic visuals of the spirit world, it's really different. Like what is the kind of horror it is? It's more like atmospheric horror. Yeah, it should disturb you, and what we want to achieve, if you put off the game for a while because you have some break, or even you finish the game, we want to have this disturbance in you later, to thinking about the game, what happened, what you saw, what you feel right now, to create this seed of fear in your mind.
Yeah, so as you said, we were, yeah, thank you. We were aiming to disturb our players like a Silent Hill series did. Yeah, so we in previous titles we were using more jump scares than the medium is, and with the medium, with all those cinematic experience, we had a mission to build a game that will slowly dwells into your mind. So yeah, we were trying to build the tension and sometimes scare you, and of course release all those emotions that we were trying to build inside you. But I think this is a different game. Yeah, it's like a slow burn horror stuff more than the game that is relying on the jump scares.
Yeah, in further you are in the game, just being in the game should be just more scary. This is our goal.
I feel like dread is a good word for this.
Yeah,
it's just there's sort of an oppressive atmosphere. Instead of things jumping out at you, this is not a combat game. You're not managing, ammunition or anything like that. There's been a lot of talk about the technological aspects of the game, and for good reason. We saw some of that split screen footage here just a second ago. So talk about how you're taking advantage of the power of next gen Xbox consoles.
Like, what is most important for us, it's the hardware, how powerful hardware is. And having like Xbox Series X and S, we knew that we don't need to downscale our idea. It can look really good, as of course we can, and fulfill our dream, how this game should look and feel. So without powerful hardware, rendering two worlds at the same time, it's like rendering two games at the same time. It would be just impossible. So without the hardware, it's no dual world gameplay in a way.
Or we will need to use very, very simplified graphics, for example.
Yeah, and SSD, of course, it's crucial again, because sometimes parts of the spiritual are reloading under other levels and you will never notice. And
I didn't
having
this.
Yeah, you just play, continue your new game. It's like one loading screen and done. You're in the immersion experience. Go away and survive.
Honestly, I would have preferred a couple of breaks in there, just to have a deep breath from time to time. So I was reading a great article about the game and about your development in VG 24/7 this week, and Jacek, there was an interesting anecdote about you playing on Xbox Series S and not even realizing it.
Yeah, some days before the final certification on the Xbox, of course, we try to play the game all the time to know what's happened and if this is the experience what we really want to give the players. And I test whole game one day on Xbox Series S, and somebody came to me and say, but you know that this is Series S, not X, because I say, wow, like this crazy how it looks, and it was just blow my mind. And another day I checked the Series X and was blown away again. So if the main developers didn't see a really big difference at the playing the whole game, like this is awesome because of the hardware, and also because how we manage these two platforms.
Yeah, so if you are not, using like a 4K TV, you will probably not notice that it's the other version.
Yeah, like we really want to also give the players on S as similar experience as we can.
And that's awesome to hear that you're doing it. It's a powerful little machine. So we saw.
Yeah, I love this console.
Yeah, I do too. It's great for travel as well.
Yeah,
I use it for streaming too. It's an awesome stream box. So we saw Marianne, and as oppressive as the atmosphere is, I like that she talks to herself, because I feel like that's what I'm doing as I play. So we know Troy Baker's in the game. You recognize Troy Baker. He's in a lot of games. He's immensely talented, and
yeah,
he's a great looking guy. I mean, I would love to be Troy Baker. But let's talk about, we spend more time, of course, with Marianne. Can you talk about her voice actress? Because I like the little sort of levity that she brings to this otherwise, scary atmosphere.
Yeah, like with the voiceovers, we work with Omuk Studio from London. They also have a studio in LA, what I remember. And, we've been with the most of the process of creating the game. So even in the demo that we show some people before, and they help us with the voices. And then we do another casting. And it was really hard to find like the final Marianne. Yeah. And Mark Isdale, the chief of Omuk Studio, say, okay, I have one person in mind, let's check this person. Yeah, and we checked the actress, and we thought, yeah, like she's perfect. And he said, yeah, it's the same actress that you do in the demo.
Yeah, her name is Kelly, and I would probably Kelly Berg. Sorry if we butchered her surname. Yeah, but it's Kelly Berg, and yeah, she was great playing as Marianne, and our members of our studio also said, okay, she's cool. She's different than normal. Sometimes she's a badass. Sometimes she's vulnerable, as Marianne should be. So yeah, I think she perfectly matches the character.
Yeah, we also show her for reference some voiceovers from Silent Hill, a little slow reading to go into the vibe. And when Marianne is narrator, it's a different kind of voiceover. And okay, she's just perfect. We know when she's narrate the scene, and where she's talking in the scene, where there are emotions, and where is it's only a recollection of a memory. So it's really good cooperation, and we are going really into it. What happened, in the future with her.
So I just want to go back to the split screen part again. And what I thought was really interesting is the types of gameplay that you're able to use when we have two things going on at once. And so here's a great example here. This shot, Sadness wants you to go up the stairs, and in the spirit world, those stairs exist, but in the real world, they've collapsed. And so it's really interesting how you have to sometimes go back and forth between the worlds and sort of see. You can see Sadness goes up those steps, you can't, and you've got to figure things out. And so talk about the gameplay and just some of the things that it really unlocks for you to have these two worlds at once. That it's not technology for technology's sake, but it's actually really interesting gameplay.
Yeah, thank you very much. So from the beginning, we were, designing the game to flow between words. Yes, so you always have to do something in one word to have results in the other, or find a way to, use your powers to overcome the obstacles, like this one. Eventually, so you will use an elevator, but it will get stuck. So you have to use your ability to detach the spirit from the body, go somewhere, grab the energy, use the energy in the spirit world to create an electricity in normal world. And that's why I'm talking about this, because you always have to think with two words, do something in one of the words to have results in the other. So yeah, we were from the very beginning, we were thinking how to use them, not only to have them to show only the story, but also how to connect it with the gameplay.
Yeah, the main goal is to think which power and which order I should use to figure it out how to progress further in the game. So it's more
Yeah. No,
It's more like, a little like Zelda or some Nintendo game. A little like, of course, yeah. To think what
this one might
tools you
not be
have.
rated for everyone the way a Zelda game might be. Yeah, it's just a
Yes.
What I think is interesting is the spirit world. You would think that's going to be the scarier world, but as you get later on into the game,
Yeah.
the material world is just as frightening.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Bloober Team a little bit here. You've made something like 5 games in the last 5 years. Are you exhausted? Do you get a break now?
We finished the project, and of course it will time to rest, but I really can't wait to start something new. Yeah, I think we're just crazy.
Yeah, and of course we are not, we are divided to smaller teams. Yeah, so for example, we didn't, participate in a Blair Witch game, for example. Yeah, we were there at the very beginning. Yeah, so for example, I traveled to LA to meet with Lionsgate, so to Blair Witch, and of course work on the pitch. But then the other part of our team, developed the game. Yes, so we were doing a medium full time for the for the last years. But yeah, we love our job. Yeah, of course, I don't like to wake up in the morning. But if the teleport will exist, I can teleport to the office. It will be great.
And who wants to work here? Yeah,
yeah.
It's beautiful. It's lovely.
Just a little bit of we'll see if that comes out, but if you zoom in, a little bit of frightening stuff there. The real demons, I guess, are your commute and your calendar, but you're managing it very well. So I hope you get a little bit of a rest here before you recharge and get started on what I'm sure will be more psychological horror, because you all are masters of the craft. So The Medium is out now on Xbox Game Pass for Xbox Series S, Series X, and also on PC. Make sure you take a look at those pretty beefy specs if you're going to want to get the best out of the game. But it looks great, so well done, and look forward to seeing more from Bloober Team.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
2020 was a lot of things to a lot of people, but for Xbox gamers, one could make the argument that it was the year of Yakuza. And yet, 2021 brings even more Yakuza onto Xbox, some games for the first time. So I'm very, very pleased to be welcoming back to the show the patriarch of Sega localization on the Yakuza series, Scott Strickart from Sega. Thanks so much for joining us.
Dude, thanks for having me again, Jeff. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I got to say, the Yakuza games have brought me tremendous joy. A year ago at this time, I had never played any of them. Now I've completely played through Yakuza 0, Kiwami 1 and 2, and I just recently, maybe a week ago, wrapped up Yakuza Like a Dragon after 70 hours. I'm still moved. There's still like a hole in my heart that is shaped. My messy hair, I'm attributing to looking like Ichiban Kasuga. So I appreciate that. In fact, I sort of went down to the local tattoo parlor and got one of these.
My God. That looks bad.
I didn't want to take my shirt, but underneath the shirt, it's the same dragon's hat all the way down there.
I believe.
Yes. So how things been going? How was Like a Dragon received, and what's it been like at the studio and at Sega?
No, it's been really cool. That game, there's a lot of trepidation about the change to the new battle system, and everyone's like, RPG, I don't know. And after it released, I think everyone kind of came around and be like, wow, you guys knocked it out of the park for this being your first RPG ever made. So, we're really happy with the reception of that. Ichiban is a huge hit. People love him, and no matter what language you chose, and, what a great protagonist. Overall, we're over the moon about the reception to Like a Dragon.
That's great to hear. I will second that. And, after we had Keiji Tang, the English language voice actor for Ichiban Kasuga on the show a few months ago, I ended up playing through the game with English VO, which I thought I would not do. I thought, and he was phenomenal. A lot of the performances were really great. So that's awesome. But as we see some video here, for those of us who played Yakuza 0, 1, and 2, we're wondering whether Kiryu Kazuma. So like what's going on with him, and we're going to find that out over the coming months. So what's coming to us here next week, or now actually?
So Yakuza Kiwami 2, if you're coming off that title, they're obviously a little bit dated, a little bit more aged, but we have given them the full HD treatment. We restored a lot of lost content. We gave them a new script, pass on the script. So, we brought them in line as much as possible with that continuity, so that you feel like you're still going from one part of Kiryu's story to the next. And as you kind of progress through 3, 4, and 5, it's just gonna, if you're curious what happens afterward, that these games really bring that to the forefront.
Yeah, and if you're someone who maybe the first game you played was Like a Dragon, which was, I think, a good entry point, but there were certain things in later chapters where it's like, who's that? Who's that? And so even there are a few times I even did that, but I think some of these characters are going to be showing up because I'm seeing them in the video that was just being shown there. So I think it'd be cool to go back in time and see how those people got where they got. With these 3 games all hitting at once, I feel like it's almost like if you had never seen Stranger Things and all of a sudden you discover it and it's like, whoa, I've got 30 episodes here. I get to just like sort of soak it in and go crazy, all at once. Is there any, but these games came out, there was some space in between them. Is there any common threads between the 3 or things that really connect them besides the story to like Kiwami 1 and 2 and 0, or are we looking at sort of like a very different look at the game? I know like some of the progression systems had changed from game to game. So it'd be, if you want to break down like from game to game, like sort of like how they evolved as you're able to really look back now that all those games are out.
Yeah, I mean, Yakuza 3 was the jump from a generational jump. So for us, it was a big leap, and that game, every one of these games introduces a new style of learning moves. These introduce the revelation system, where you see events happening in the city and can learn the move by watching that ridiculousness kind of unfold, and you're in for a treat with every single revelation. From a battle system perspective, you do kind of learn that, you're already kind of the Dragon of Dojima, right? So you've got this Dragon of Dojima style that you're building on. And then in 4 and 5, we introduce multiple character perspectives for the first time. So, if you've played Yakuza 0, you're aware that, that game flipped between Kiryu and Majima. But 4 introduces 4 different protagonists, each with their own battle style. And 5 has 5 different protagonists, each with their own battle style. And so there's a lot to learn and a lot to do. So, if you imagine everything that takes place in a single Yakuza game, Kiwami or Kiwami 2, and then multiply that by the amount of protagonists we have, again, I come back to the idea that these are just absolute feasts of content.
Well, speaking of feasts, because we're getting a buffet of feasts here, can you talk about just like on the length of the games? We've seen some like Yakuza 0. Oh my God, I must have put in 80 hours into Yakuza 0. And whereas Kiwami 1 and 2 were a little more, I don't want to call them bite-sized. They were still, tens of hours long. But how are we looking in terms of, the how much time you'll be spending in these worlds?
Tens of hours is a great indicator until you hit 5, because 5, you're suddenly like, wow, this is a long game. And then when you beat it, you're like, it's like you have beaten the game and you are 12% done. Because there's just that much side content and stuff to do. You can go hunting in the hills with Saejima. You can start driving a taxi with Kiryu. There's we're great at bringing you a wealth of side content to enjoy, and whether how much mileage you get out of that is of course personal preference, but it's there if you want to enjoy it.
So a lot of the side content, I feel like batting cages are things that we've seen multiple times. I got very into some of the golf stuff, especially early on in Like a Dragon, just because you're so broke. You're literally fishing for coins under vending machines, and that was a viable play style early on in the game. But some of them are just like crazy, and you're doing them really just to see a different side of what turns out to sometimes be some of the nicest gangsters that you've ever met. They always take time for people. So are there any sort of memorable sort of sub stories or interesting diversions in Yakuza 3, 4, and 5 that really stand out to you as you've been going back through them?
One of the ones that always stands out to me is the Curry Man. I forget what his actual name is, but there's a man dressed up as a Curry superhero, and you can one of the most famous to the fan base things is this dialogue box that you get where it says you can be spicy and lend a hand. Or ignore him and be not spicy. So, there's little things like that, the little touches. We introduce a lot of the side characters that people have loved ever since Saigo and the trainers and all that kind of stuff. Akiyama makes his introduction as a playable character. There's so much to love. Hana, man, I could just go on. But it's best left for you to explore.
So can we talk a little bit about you and what you do? Because no one explores everything that's in the game so much as the person who's in charge of the localization of these games. And as I was playing through Like a Dragon most recently, I could only marvel at the amount of work that went into it. But how many things are or can you just sort of just talk about that process? Because I'd have to imagine some things in the game might not at first blush make sense or be just like a common thing that we see here in the West. And so how do you tackle those things? I would love to just learn more about like even how you got into it.
Yeah. I mean, the 3, 4, and 5 were happening at the same time that I was working on Like a Dragon, and to attempt to even try to do that was insane. So this was actually the localization stuff was handled by a different team. But I was obviously well aware of the process and how to do it. So it's, for 3, 4, and 5, we didn't look at these localizations as being needing to be done from scratch. We essentially took existing localizations and went through them with a fine-tooth comb and to make sure that they were up to snuff and in line with the content that we'd done previously, Zero, Kiwami 2, so that you wouldn't feel like, oh, this feels older, this sounds older, and there's, especially in Yakuza 3, there was a lot of content that was just simply because multiple teams had touched it in the past, it needed another extra layer of polish, and that makes this really the ideal version of 3 because it helps to understand and piece together that story in a way that the original localization didn't, in addition to restoring some of the content that had originally been cut from the original release of 3 because they were just like, cabaret clubs? No one knows what a cabaret club is. Cut that, So now that's all back and, adding additional layers of that localization. But, when you look at, by the time you get to 5, which is the biggest localization effort ever made for our team, some odd 2.2 million Japanese characters. Because it's each chapter with featuring, Kiryu, Saejima, Shinada, Haruka, and Akiyama is almost like a game. And so it's almost like 5 games inside a single game that, you have to look at and make sure that the voice is consistent, especially if you have multiple team members touching it. And it's just a massive effort, no matter, even if it's just like a quick rewrite or a quick skim, it's just layers and layers and layers and layers.
Well, you all did a fantastic job because I've gotten most of the references, even if I've never been to a cabaret club or really, well, everything I know what to expect. I know from, Yakuza 0 and Sotenbori, even what it's like to work there, apparently. But it's funny, I've actually looked at the maps and I've figured out more or less where in Osaka that area is with like the restaurant with the dancing crab. And I think I figured out where in Yokohama the park is. And it looks like you nailed a lot of those different things. And so in a year where I haven't really left this room very much, you've got me excited for places I now want to visit in real life. And just, not pick a lot of fights, of course, but to visit and see them and sort of just enjoy them and see if there is indeed a underground fighting ring, underneath, this door. So I'm sure that's all accurate. So Yakuza 3, 4, and 5 out now. And while there is tens of hours or more to play, you're a little bit, you're on the clock, I guess I should say, because the final story, the swan song of Kazuma Kiryu, Yakuza 6, the Song of Life is coming in just a couple months, right?
Yeah, looking forward to that. Oh God, get the tissue box ready. It's an emotional journey when setting out to finish Kiryu's ride is something you got to be ready for. So if like Jeff says, the clock's ticking, but man, just also take breaks between those games. You can't burn yourself out. Like he was saying that there's no shortage. These were spread out over years of releases, and now we're throwing them at you at the same time. So absolutely enjoy everything else that the Xbox has to offer, between this stuff.
And they're part of Xbox Game Pass. So check out Yakuza 3, 4, and 5. And if you haven't already, Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami 1 and 2 will be completing the full arc of Kazuma Kiryu just a couple of months from now. But they're there for you. Check them out. And if you don't have Xbox Game Pass, you can subscribe for just $1 for your first couple of months. So definitely worth checking out. Scott Strickart from Sega, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk. Love the work you all are doing. So keep up the great work, and know that you've made a lot of new fans on Xbox here in the last year.
Thanks, Jeff. It's going to be a big year for RGG. We're not nearly through everything we're doing, so follow us on at RGG Studio and keep up to date on the latest. There's more to come.
I love to hear that. So we'll have to have you back to talk more about that when the time comes.
As promised, joining us today is Rich Lambert. He's the creative director at ZeniMax Online Studios. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I got to tell you, you guys had a big moment earlier this week. Can you tell us what's going on? Because the Elder Scrolls Online, you guys have some pretty big news that dropped this week.
We do. So we have a brand new year-long story that we're releasing this year called Gates of Oblivion. The big feature point is Mehrunes Dagon in the chapter that we launch in June. And it's a really cool story about essentially a deal with the devil, Daedra, and deceit. And so it's going to be a lot of fun this year.
Tell us a little bit about the game, because I know there's a lot of folks that listen to this podcast or watch it that certainly they're hardcore fans, but maybe there's some other folks that aren't. So tell us a little bit about what Elder Scrolls Online is for those that maybe are living under a rock.
Sure. So first and foremost, it's a true Elder Scrolls experience. You can play it solo. You can participate in all the story content, and you get to learn more about the world of Tamriel. Now, the extra added bonus is you get to play it with your friends and in a multiplayer setting, and so it's this really interesting mix of solo and group content. And I think one of the biggest bits of magic with the Elder Scrolls Online is that you can jump in at any point. You don't have to level up through 7 years now of previous content in order to get to the newest stuff or to play with your friends. You can just jump in and start playing right away and playing together.
That's a great point, because a lot of people read this and they're like, well, it's been out for a while, I'm going to get left behind. But I know your team has taken a lot of care in trying to solve that problem for a lot of people, to be as accessible as possible from a welcoming standpoint, just letting anybody that wants to play in, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the bits that I'm most proud of. It was definitely a major paradigm shift for us and really for the industry, I think. But yeah, we battle level the players to the content so that you can play with anybody. You can go anywhere. You can kind of choose your own path and choose the direction you want to go and do it. You don't have to follow a prescribed leveling process.
Yeah, it's I hate to say this, but it really is choose your own adventure, right?
It is, yeah. Which is again very Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, to your point, exactly right. When you're looking at the game and you've been working on it for quite some time now, what was it like making the transition from this really rich single player experience to this now living, breathing world that's open 24/7 for millions of people to join?
It was definitely a learning process. We had basically Oblivion to learn from, Morrowind as well, but Oblivion was really the thing that we started working on and trying to figure out what is Elder Scrolls. And so we got partway through that process, and then Skyrim came out, and Skyrim was very different than Oblivion, and so we had to kind of change things around again. And then
that
at
darn
launch,
Todd Howard always changing things up.
And then we got to launch, and all of the things that we kind of thought were super important in the Elder Scrolls world didn't necessarily translate as well into the multiplayer world. So, for instance, you having a major effect on the world. We had lots of quests, lots of objectives in the game where you go into a quest and it's basically the bad layer or the hostile layer, and then you get and finish it, and you've changed the world, changed the setting, and it's turned into this friendly layer. And that is fantastic in a single player game because the player sees changes in the world directly. But in a multiplayer world, if you and your buddy are playing together and he did the quest and you didn't, you don't see each other, and so
Right.
you're split up. And
Right.
so that was the biggest issue we had at launch, was all of these player separation issues, and it took us almost a year to fix a lot of them.
And tell us a little about how you fix them in terms of some of the experiences in game to kind of address that, because I think it's really interesting.
We focused a lot more on visual changes in the world rather than physical changes. So a really good example is you go into an area and you get a quest from a certain NPC, non-player character.
Sure.
You go through this quest, and then at the end, if that you choose to kill that NPC or that NPC dies in there, when you go back and you go to turn the quest in, there's an NPC there. It's just a different NPC.
Right.
That's a visual cosmetic change. The sky can change colors, those kinds of things. Those are easier to do than flat out there's hostile creatures in this area and not hostile creatures in this other area.
The getting back to the announcement, I want to also point out that for those of you that don't know, Elder Scrolls Online, part of Game Pass, so you can there's no reason not to try. If you're a Game Pass member, and why aren't you? There's no reason to try it out. You've got 4K Ultra HD on Xbox Series X. It looks amazing. It looks amazing. But I want to get back to some of the news routine. We've got an article up on Wire about all of the announcements, and kind of go through some of the announcements and what this content means. You talked about the top of the interview. Tell us what we can expect in game in June.
Sure. So in the chapter, the Blackwood chapter, we have roughly 30 hours of new story content. So basically a massive single-player game right there. We have a new trial for our 12-player, a new 12-player trial for our veteran players. We have a brand new tutorial that we've changed this year to focus a little bit more on allowing you to choose your own story rather than being focused only on this new chapter. And then there's tons of new cosmetic rewards, new gear, lots of cool new items to chase, and stories to be had. And then the big new feature that we have coming is the companion system.
Yes. Tell us about that. I want to double click on that, because that to me is something. When I read that, I was like, all right, now we're talking. Because everybody always wants to have their companion with them.
Yeah, so companions are, if you choose, your permanent adventuring buddies in the world of Tamriel. You can, once you've unlocked them in the Blackwood chapter, you can level them up. You can assign roles to them, so they can be a tank, a healer, a damage dealer. You can basically set which abilities they use. And they also have their own sets of likes and dislikes. And so there's this rapport system that as you kind of progress through it, you unlock more quests that tell stories about them.
Now, one of the things, that's great because, maybe some of your pals aren't online and you've at least got your buddy, but how does it work when we all have our companions?
So we're going to go into a lot more details as we get closer to the final launch of the system, but the goal is they replace a player.
Okay.
So they're not in addition to.
Right.
But again, we're still working on a lot of these things. Our goal is you can use them anywhere, probably not PvP and probably not solo arenas.
Of course.
But everywhere else is kind of the goal.
Yeah, and what's great is because it's it's online. You guys can kind of look at the feedback, and I know you have a tremendous community, and you're looking at all that feedback and bringing that back in. But you can look at that. You're going to be able to tweak this and kind of evolve it along with the community, which is another hallmark of ESO, right?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we're as successful as we are, is we listen to the community.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the best way that people can get all their information? Maybe, like I say, maybe some new folks are just Game Pass members like, I got to check this out. What's the best place for them to plug in and get details on this and all your updates?
I would go to the TES Online website. Okay. That's the best place. It has all the info there, as well as all the different versions and what they all mean.
Yeah, well, we'll do that, and I'll make sure we put a link in the show notes. And of course, I just put it up there. It's on Twitter, Test Online @Test Online. Well, Rich Lambert, I want to thank you for joining me today. I'm looking forward to getting you on. I know that we'll get you on later this year. We're getting close to getting Bethesda being actually part of the Microsoft family officially, so we can have a cake and a party and all of that stuff. You guys are still shipping great stuff, and we're looking forward to what you guys have in store. Great announcement, content coming out in June, and maybe we'll get you back on in June when it launches. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
There you go. I told you, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Those we got 3 gaming interviews. Well done on that, by the way, Jeffrey.
Thank you. I feel like I've had different. I had more costume changes than Beyonce in this show. I think 3 or 4 different looks. Do you like my Yakuza jacket?
Yeah, I thought that was I was you kind of pulled that out of nowhere. It's like, what's he doing? And there it was.
What is he doing? It's Ichiban's dragon. You know what I didn't do is like they do in the game, and they rip their jacket off, and then they're like, "This old man super ripped." Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed?
But yeah, thank you for doing the Bloober Team Bloober. Great. Check out the meme available on Game Pass. Yakuza. And speaking of Game Pass and Yakuza, Jeff, tell us about that.
Well, I mean, yeah. So there are now 6 Yakuza titles in Xbox Game Pass: Yakuza 0, Kiwami 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2.
Is it all the Yakuza?
5. No, because the Kazuma Kiryu sort of story arc, who's the main guy that looks tough, and you recognize him with the white suit jacket and the red shirt. I don't feel like anyone could pull this off in real life, and yet it just looks so normal to him. His story will wrap up in Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, and that's coming to Game Pass, coming to Xbox, Windows 10 in March, late March. So you're on the clock. You have 3 months to beat Yakuza 3, 4, 5 before 6 comes out. Might be a bit of a tall order, but I'm going to get started tonight.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And of course, ESO, Elder Scrolls Online, big update coming in June. They talked about that. You get your companion and a few other things. I'll get those guys back on. So that was a lot of fun. So that was kind of the game side. Now we talked about kind of the games, of course, is what it's all about. But now we're going to talk a little bit about what makes games run. And that's actually, it's interesting because you have something to say about GameStack and kind of what those guys, what the interviews are going to do, right, Jeff?
Well, yeah, sure. The Azure PlayFab team is actually celebrating the 3-year anniversary of joining Microsoft, and so they're heading into year 4 here. And here, I'm over here, Larry.
Oh, hi, Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
So as they head into year 4, they're starting a new tradition, which is the PlayFab Anniversary Awards. And these are fun awards which honor amazing indie studios who have been equally amazing PlayFab partners. So why don't we check out more about that, and then when we come back, we'll let you know where you can find out more if you're going to get into game dev, and this might be the thing for you.
Really excited to have James Gortzman with me today. James, nice to see you.
Hey, good to see you again. It's been a while.
Now, I'm excited to talk to you because you have an anniversary, a work anniversary, a business anniversary, but you work on PlayFab, which for those folks that don't know, could you explain, folks, what it means? Because it's not a title. It's a bunch of technology that lives behind some of our games, right?
Yeah, well, so games have changed dramatically over the last couple of decades, as we've talked about. They've gone from like products you buy and sell and then you're kind of done with, to games that are now living, breathing, ongoing services that are continually being kind of operated. And doing that requires a lot of technology out in the cloud to sort of run and host and update the game. And so PlayFab is a sort of collection of these services built for games in the cloud that help developers spend more of their time making the game fun and less time having to build sort of the boring plumbing it takes to make these modern games live. And Microsoft bought PlayFab about 3 years ago. So the anniversary we have is we're coming up in the 3rd year anniversary of us joining Microsoft. And so it's been a pretty amazing run since then, and we're kind of taking this chance to look back at our time with Microsoft and reflect on what that path has been like.
Now, PlayFab's been around for quite a while. I think you said 7 years, right? Before Microsoft purchased?
Yeah, we founded it in 2014. So yeah, it's 7 years.
Wow, 2014 feels like it was just yesterday, but you're right, it's 7 years ago. Now, when we look at PlayFab, people are probably scratching their heads going, I think I know what that is. Tell us about, you kind of did it at a high level, but tell us about some of the games that leverage PlayFab and some of the titles you've worked with over the years.
Yeah, well, since joining Microsoft, a lot of our kind of Microsoft's own products have sort of switched over to using it for, a lot of the kind of technology. For example, Minecraft, Gears of War, our new Flight Simulator game. And they're all kind of big games Microsoft is sort of known for that are using PlayFab, and that kind of makes sense. Minecraft far and away the biggest title we have on the platform. But we also have games from a lot of third parties, like No Man's Sky, or the new Dirt game from Codemasters, SpongeBob SquarePants from Tilting Point, which won Google's Game of the Year award on Android Play last year. These are all games that are using PlayFab for one or more of their kind of back-end services.
And when you say back-end services, like I say, I know I have a lot of some IT folks that listen to my show, and they certainly game developers and fans of gaming. When you say back-end services, that's a whole collection of a whole suite of different things. Kind of just talk through what that is, because it's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I think the best place to start is probably with like multiplayer, because I think that's where people can kind of most easily understand why you need backend services. So for multiplayer games, you've got to typically run game servers, somewhere, typically out in the cloud, that let players, to keep people from cheating. You want to have sort of an authoritative source of truth out in the cloud that says, okay, yeah, this person shot this person, and that's that worked, as opposed to trusting, the players to kind of self-report, okay, this worked, because otherwise you're open to cheating. But you've got to do things like matchmaking, bringing players together, voice chat, text chat, technologies to sort of help keep your community safe. That's sort of the starting point. Then you can kind of widen from there, getting to things like games with in-game transactions, or sort of live content updates. You want to have a place to store all the content that you're updating for the game. You want to be able to, if you're doing user-generated content like Minecraft does, like a marketplace, making it easier for players to sort of upload and store their own content, and then sort of organize that. And then you get into things like analytics. A lot of games actually track and sort of generate data on what players are doing, because I use that to help make the game better. Developers are constantly asking, hey, I just added this new player class or a new weapon or a new module. How did it do? Did people enjoy it? Was it successful? Because game developers want to do more of what their players want. And you can't do that if you're flying blind. You don't want to just keep asking surveys. Did you like the last level? You'd rather actually be able to look at the data and say, yeah, players loved the last level. They played it all the way through and really got into it, and we should do more like that. So analytics and data analysis is another one of the kind of big services games typically invest in.
I know, it's interesting you say that, because I remember, when we launched the 360 and we had achievements, it was really rudimentary. But developers at that point could look at achievements and go, hey, wait a minute, only 5% of the people got the end game achievement, and kind of figure out that only 5% of the people finished the game. This is much more sophisticated, because it's really helping folks look at what gamers are doing and help fine-tune the game. And we've seen that time and time again over the past few years, as you said, with some of these games as a service, like you said, like a Destiny or some of the other games, where they use this data to kind of tweak it and make the game better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is really, if you go to game developer conferences, this is really the biggest shift, I would say, in the community, is we call this live ops. Live ops is this sort of general term for everything you do in a game post-launch. Right. And, you take a game like Fortnite, everyone's familiar with Fortnite, they're probably one of the first AAA games that's on all the major platforms like consoles and as well as mobile, that's free to play and invests really heavily in live ops. And that's an example where it's not just a game anymore, it's really a full-on community. And as games become these sort of communities of players, the need for these services goes up. Epic has what they're calling Epic Online Services. That's something that they're focusing on. We have our own, the thing with PlayFab is sort of the Microsoft version of that, which is now growing dramatically to, I think since we got acquired, we've grown almost 10 times where we were, back 3 years ago. So it's been a pretty rapid rate of growth.
You talked about some of the other games that are working, but I want to point out, we've talked about a lot of AAA titles, but really, any gamer, you can create an ID game and you can tap into some of your services, right?
Yeah, and in fact, it's free. A lot of the services are free for people who are building games for Xbox. So if you're using your game on Xbox, all the things we're talking about are free using Xbox Live. And then in addition, you can then pay for them for other platforms. And we see a lot of developers, again, it's way cheaper and more cost effective to use services like these from us than building it yourself from scratch and having to not just invest and maintain it, but then if something goes wrong at 3 a.m., you're the one getting the call to go and figure out why your server crashed. as opposed to our team waking up to figure out why the server crashed. And
I don't think our team wakes up. I think they just never went to sleep. Right? It's interesting because PlayFab is this as you said, is this collection of services that kind of goes through that you offer game developers, but it sits. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sits on top of this other service that a lot of people may know, which is Azure, right? Massive cloud service, right?
That's right. And in fact, that's actually one of the things I wanted to share with you, which is, since the last time we spoke, I've actually changed my job title. My role has changed a little bit. So I'm no longer just general manager for PlayFab now. I have this sort of new role where I'm actually looking after Microsoft's entire sort of gaming cloud, business as it was. And so that's not just PlayFab, which is our set of services that are pre-built for you. They just work. You can use them immediately. But then you're right, that's just on top of Azure. And a lot of game developers choose to use both. They want to have services like PlayFab that work out of the box. But if there's something they want to do that's custom or unique to their game, where maybe something in PlayFab is not quite right, they're also free to build it themselves on top of Azure. And so we have a whole bunch of game studios, a sort of broader set of game studios that are using services like our raw compute, our virtual machines, networking, our storage layer. It's a bunch of things we can do in sort of the raw cloud layer as well. So PlayFab itself sits on top of Azure. Our own first-party studios sit on Azure. And then we have a lot of customers out there like Pearl Abyss or Nexon that are using Azure for some of their games themselves.
What are some of the things that in this world that have impacted people that they might not be aware of, that when you bring it up, you're going to go, oh, because there's just so much going on back there?
I think just the sheer scope of this is surprising. I think when I first started PlayFab, I didn't appreciate the level of automation and sort of complexity that these games require. I mean, just to give you some sense, at peak, I think last year, right on the holidays, we were hitting something like, 120,000 or at least hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. And this idea that
across
literally
all the games.
Yeah, across all the games on our platforms. And so this idea that every second that ticks by, there's computers out there processing or doing a couple 100,000 things every second. I mean, I don't know, but my head can't get wrapped around that. I mean, it's sort of like, no human could ever run a game like that. It's only possible because we have not just computers, handling all this load, but we have computers managing the computers to sort of do all this, because it's just a scale of complexity that's unimaginable. And these servers are around the world. These are not just all in one data center somewhere and here in Washington State. We've got data centers in United Arab Emirates and in India and in Germany and Korea and all these areas where game developers have players, because you want to put the compute as close to the player as possible for the least latency and the best multiplayer game experience. And so, and our friends in Azure are continually building new data centers, and as fast as they can build them, we're moving our services and spinning up servers in those regions so that they're always available.
It's interesting you say that, because I mean, at data center, I've been to data centers in my life. I know you have as well. And they're generally pretty much what you think. They're big dark rooms with a bunch of servers. But the ones I really want to visit is that Project Natick that we've been working on, where we submerged the data center. Because as a scuba diver, I'm like, I want to go down and check that out. So, I mean, I don't know what's going on with that project, but yeah, you're right. Bringing the data centers as close to possible to where people are is part of the part of the success here. We just James, we're a few months into this generation with Xbox Series X and S. Tell us about what that means for PlayFab and what's next for Azure PlayFab.
So every next generation of kind of gaming consoles, or on the PC side, new graphics cards brings sort of a whole new level of sort of player expectations for realism and for sort of more immersive graphics and more immersive sound. And a lot of the what that does is it puts more and more pressure on the game production process. Game developers are sort of expected to do more work now and create ever better, more glamorous games. But the amount of time and budget hasn't really changed. And so one of the things we're actually looking at is how the cloud and things like Azure and PlayFab can be used not just in sort of post-launch operation side, but as actually part of the development process itself.
Tell us about that.
Our game Flight Simulator, I love talking about Flight Simulator, because for those of you who don't know it, first of all, if you haven't played already, go check it out. It's incredible. You can fly literally around the entire world, and it's photorealistic. Almost every part of the world is in there. And we didn't build it from scratch. Once upon a time, we would have had to have hired an army of tens of thousands of 3D modelers to literally model out every part of the world, and even then we wouldn't have gotten it right. But nowadays, we are able to use machine learning and artificial intelligence to actually help do content creation. And so the way Flight Simulator worked is we started with Bing satellite imagery. So we have satellite imagery of the entire planet. And they basically built these 3D model, these machine learning models that could take a satellite image and sort of extrapolate what you would expect to see there in a photorealistic way, and sort of build geometry for the whole Earth based on these satellite maps. And it's really, and it works. It's incredible. And you can fly around places like Rio de Janeiro, and it looks photorealistic, and no human created that geometry. It was all built off of this satellite images. And so that's really, to me, that notion of computers and machine learning and AI getting involved in the content creation process, I think we're going to see more and more of that as those expectations keep going up for what players want.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had that for years, this concept called procedurally generated levels, which is much simpler. I don't mean to diminish what you're saying, but I mean, so it's just imagine that, extrapolate that out to a massive level or something along those lines. Then it gets very interesting, and also using AI to drive the dynamics of in-game events and things like that. It just really, the sky's the limit. That's really exciting.
Yeah, and so we're starting to invest there as well. I think we're going to see a lot more happening in that level, and even things like, another example, one of the technologies we're working on, I think we're going to be talking about at our upcoming GameStack Live event in April, is some advanced 3D audio tech we're doing, where we're creating ever more realistic sort of 3D spatial sound environments. Yep. It turns out that to create, I didn't know this until recently, turns out to create one of these really realistic kind of 3D audio environments, you've got to take your level geometry, the world you've built, and do some very sophisticated kind of calculations and running it through the models to generate the data that the game then uses to make it sound correct.
Accurate,
so it's almost like audio ray tracing, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out that running these models can take a very long time. If you're running it on a beefy machine on your desktop, it can take hours and hours, even days, to build these models, which is really time consuming if you're a developer. Turns out, though, that if you move it to the cloud, you can push a button and you can spin up a ton of compute and do the whole thing in a matter of minutes. And so there's also ways in which we can use cloud tech to sort of automate and speed up a lot of these light map calculations or audio map calculations that are part of building and testing your game.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about what people can do now, to your point of just pushing some of the production off their desk and up into the cloud, and to enable them to create these things quickly, which is really amazing. Now, I need to let you go, but before I let you go, I mean, I know I've got some budding game developers who may be in a high school or college or university that may have some ideas. How do they get started with using some PlayFab services? Where should they go?
Well, start with your game engine. So you're probably using Unity and Unreal, right? And then I would go to playfab.com, and we have SDKs for both Unreal and Unity to kind of get you started. We have a ton of examples and tutorials on there on how to actually kind of make your first steps and start using the services. Start from there, and it's meant to be easy to use. PlayFab was meant to be something that anyone could start with, and then once you kind of get to using that PlayFab tech, if you start to reach the limits of what you can do with PlayFab and you want to go deeper, you can start to learn more about Azure. And there's something called Microsoft Learn. MS Learn has published a ton of really, really good tutorials on how to get started with Azure. There are some free credits available. And if you're a game developer that is using Azure and you want to get more serious about it, you should contact us. Email sales@playfab.com and we'll talk to you. And we'll actually engage a conversation and figure out if we can't build a deeper relationship with you.
Azure PlayFab, a lot going on there. James Gortzman, thank you so much. Co-founder of PlayFab, and now you're the GM of all sorts of stuff here at Microsoft. Azure Gaming, I don't even know what to call it anymore.
Cloud stuff.
There you go. Thank you, my friend, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Cheers.
Joining me today is Andrea Doyen. He's the transmedia ARG producer for Allison Smith. Andre, thank you for joining me, and what an amazing setup you have there. You look great. I'm sure you're going to sound just as good.
Thank you very much. Yes. Hopefully the sound will be loud and clear.
Well, I'm looking forward to chatting with you. I talked to James Gortzman earlier, and we're talking about PlayFab. And I wanted, first of all, give us a little bit history about you and Allison Smith, and then I want to talk about how you guys use PlayFab.
All right. So as I said, actually, we started to get very passionate about the form of gaming experience that was close to role-playing game, basically, which is alternate reality game, ARG, and started in 2007 to produce and create ARGs. And over the years, we got very, very excited by this kind of experience, transmedia, interactive theater, etc. And we met the great folks at Funcom, and they hired us to do most of the launch of The Secret World, but most importantly, the biggest ARG that Secret World has done back then. So we lead these projects, and after that, throughout the years, we got hired by other studio. We did some consulting work on Mr. Robot, and we got hired by the team at Hello Games to do a major ARG on No Man's Sky called Waking Titan. And after that, we've done other ARG for Bloodline 2s with Paradox Interactive. And yeah, we're at PUBG recently in December. So yeah, we basically mostly started as a transmedia ARG company. And this led us to have needs in live ops, to have platforms that can operate, in a persistent manner, in real time, that can support our storytelling needs and the way it change and evolve and have to react on multiple channel, multiple platform, because ARG, you can get like phone calls and have part of your mission on a web-based website, phone, or physically, etc. And LiveUp has that kind of capacity of helping us from a text perspective. And that's what got us into the live operation with our first game on Steam. That was The Black Watchman. Very early on, actually, PlayFab was starting. It's already six years ago. And PlayFab was very young back then when we started.
It's interesting. You say you started doing ARGs in 2007, and that, you throw that number out there. I'm like, wait a minute. That's like 14 years ago. There's a lot that is. I mean, let's be very clear. These were just starting to show up in people's pockets, right? This was right. 2007 is right at the moment that the smartphone took off with the iPhone release and so forth. That is amazing.
We had some ARG that involve RRC channel stuff that players don't probably know that much anymore today. But it was a different generation. We even had back then puzzle on built-in board system that you actually need a modem to actually call with your phone line. But I mean, today, if we were to do a puzzle like that, pretty sure no one will be able to solve it.
That'd be great. There's a little challenge there. Go real old school analog, right?
Find an old 1900 boats modem and try to contact a phone line.
Tell me about the integrations of PlayFab with some of the new platforms and how it's enabled those deep integration with the gaming communities. Because it's interesting, your company creates kind of these experiences that are around many popular games, right? So you're kind of supporting it. So tell us about, how the integration of PlayFab works with some of those communities.
Yeah, exactly. We have our own IP, but we also extend our client's IP in Transmedia Universe. So outside the game or between season or between updates, for example. And what's really exciting with PlayFab is the fact that with the industry as it evolves, more and more platform gets open now, and you can really integrate with them. And in the case of PlayFab, what it meant is that, for example, we can tap into Twitch and the whole Twitch API and the Twitch, add-on extension. So even if you are not playing the game, I still can have some quests, some, idle mechanics or different, storytelling side quests that can go on outside the game and involve or make the universe much bigger than just the initial purpose of the game and the design of the game. And often clients are sitting on gold mine of IP and universe or even side quests that they haven't had the time to implement. And when we come to them and say, hey guys, why would we not tap into that for some Discord role playing or for Twitch role playing or for other multi-platform role playing like that, that's where they get very excited. And PlayFab, being a live develop platform with SDK in Unreal, in Unity, in many other framework. It makes it very easy for us to do that, implement these mechanics and extend that storytelling in a much more rich and complex universe. So we even Paradox is really one of the clients who pushed the envelope the furthest, in which we actually had 30 actors in a live event of 300 guests, and the actors themselves got updates based on mission progression of people online, and PlayFab track all of that and updated in real time activity in the venue itself based on the user progression. So you can do very crazy stuff, and with Unreal Engine now, with real-time rendering that we see rising right now in the industry, you can expect that to go much more advanced in the future also.
You talked about some of these really creative things that you've been doing with these ARGs. Do you kind of look over at movies and kind of roll your eyes and go, yeah, that's fine, linear storytelling, whatever, but you guys are really in real-time narrative branching? That's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I'm excited because we have more and more people from TV and movie industry starting to say, we want to bring our IP online, we want to bring our IP in streaming, we want to bring our IP to more digital platform. And this is where, like I said, Unreal Engine is an incredible real-time rendering engine. When you pipe that with PlayFab, you integrate that with Twitch API and Twitch extension, you end up with some crazy real-time integration and storytelling that can push the global experience in a very interesting way, either as its own show or as a way to do something between the show and keep the universe alive, basically.
When you're designing ARGs and transmedia projects, what has your company, Allison Smith, done to stand out in this space and really push the boundaries of your projects?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Well, when you're designing the ARGs, what have you guys done at Allison Smith to stand out in the space and push the boundaries and kind of be so, I mean, the question is, like, how are you so creative, right?
Thanks. But I think the core is really to be sure that we try, and it may sound cheesy and we didn't always succeed, but we always try to shy away from a client who come to us with purely a marketing gimmick or a marketing component, and that first of all, the lore and the way we're going to develop the ARG is not canon or is not part of the core of the universe and the IP. So we really want that to matter, so players have a reason while they will involve themselves, how it will shape up the future of the storyline of the universe itself, especially if it's between games update or season or etc. So I think that make our ARG interesting, because they're not just like, marketing made kind of a side story that's just a gimmick and will be thrown away as soon as the campaign is finished. Right. When you start to do that, you really work with the creative team at the client, and you end up with, I think, some ARG signature the way we did that are much more memorable than other type of campaign that were so limited and didn't have access to the creative team of the actual IP, that didn't really were able to do or push the envelope or get the creative freedom that they will had wanted to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, because we've all seen, for lack of a better term, ham-handed marketing, and that's, and gamers are a pretty sophisticated group, and they can see right through that. Yeah. You're a gamer, I'm a gamer. If people listening and watching your game, we just want to have fun, and if you bring us into that universe, that IP that you were just talking about, and let us have fun and doing something a little different, why not? That's a lot of fun. You talked about the evolution of some of your projects over the last 10 years. Tell us about some of the innovation you have planned for the future, and where you kind of see the ARG in your space going.
Well, like I said, the in the last 12 months, really the maturity of what Twitch now offer us, the maturity of what Facebook Watch is also offering us in terms of API and backend integration. The same with Unreal and the real-time rendering engine. The fact that I can control the whole decor and have your input as a collective group of players impacting the universe, the immersion, and the visual, all of that are kind of pretty, interesting. And the core of that is that PlayFab is already supporting us to do that. So in the future, we have right now in production very large scale project that tap into transmedia and ERG and even events that are much more immersive in that sense. And also more and more IP are looking at the concept of persistence, that peak moment happen when the game is updated or when the universe is getting updated. Or did I will
That's
back
you
up
went black for a minute. It's okay.
minimal wide shot, but the game is updated or the episodes get updated. But basically, I think that the idea of a ARG that fill the void between updates is definitely where we think we can see more and more of interactivity and better content coming up in the future.
Yeah, we talked to, like I said, we talked to James earlier, and he brought up a few ideas, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have in store. Andre Doyen, founder and chief storyteller at Allison Smith. I know you guys have a lot of projects that you've worked on, and many, 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 many more in the pipe. So thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing what you and your team come up with creatively.
Thank you very much.
Joining me now is Oliver Luffler. He's the CTO and co-founder of Colibri Games. Oliver, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
First of all, tell us a little bit about Colibri Games. We're going to talk about PlayFab in a minute and how you guys use them, but tell us a little bit about Colibri Games, because some folks may recognize some of your titles.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so in general, like we are a mobile game startup based in Berlin. So we started around 5 years ago in a small student's apartment with a lot of passion for creating games. So back then it was the student's apartment. We were a few people there, but it grew quite fast from 5 people as founders to then 15 people in this small apartment. So it was really crazy times back then. So we had meetings in the kitchen and in the hallway. We had lunch in the bedrooms of our founders, as well as interviews there. So it was a crazy time. But we managed to grow the company and go into a proper office. And today our team is over 120 people strong. And also we are part of Ubisoft since last year. It's one of the biggest gaming brands in the world. I think probably all of you know that. And yeah, we have now a portfolio of multiple idle games. Now, our most successful hit is Idle Miner Tycoon, which has now more than 120 million downloads on both platforms.
Tell us first of all, congratulations. Growing your company in 4 years from a couple of people in an apartment to being acquired by Ubisoft is no small feat. So congratulations on that. Tell us a little bit about working with the PlayFab technology and what it means and how you use it. Because a lot of folks, I've been doing some interviews all along here, and we're seeing some examples, but I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. So when we started out Colibri Games, we were a small team, very lean, very agile. We wanted to just release a lot of updates in a fast time. And we also wanted to really focus our use and our time and our resources to make great games and being very player-centric. Therefore, we kind of doing this for quite some time, but at some point the players were really requesting more social features. They wanted to have they wanted to play with their friends. They wanted to see how their friends are progressing in the game. They wanted also the ability to securely save their game state in the cloud. And back then we didn't had a lot of knowledge about backend development, cloud infrastructure, and we also didn't want to build that up because we really wanted to focus on the games itself. So we looked out for some solutions, and I think like there was a GDC a couple of years ago where I met like the founder James of PlayFab. And he was demoing the platform, and I think like when I saw this, it was like exactly what we are looking for. So an intuitive platform where we don't need any knowledge, any backend infrastructure, and there were already features built in that where the players can connect with the friends. It's an easy way to store the information about the player in the cloud, and also offers a lot of flexibility to customize the game experiences.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talked about creating games, and like many years ago, we've talked about it. You ship the game and you forget about it. But there's so many features nowadays that gamers expect. We expect achievements and a friends list and matchmaking and game saves in the cloud. Of course, you're going to have game saves. Like, why wouldn't I? A lot of things like that. So you guys have been able to leverage a lot of that from PlayFab. You can focus on making a great game. I want to talk about Idle Miner Tycoon. I mean, that was a huge hit, and that must have been pretty stressful for you guys to see that just take off and go, guys, can we support this? Right?
Yeah. So with Idle Miner Tycoon back then, we wanted to release like a game in 2 months of development. So we really wanted to focus on building an MVP, like a small version of the game first, get it out there, kind of get it to the users as fast as possible to collect feedback from the players. And then we wanted to ship this weekly updates. As you said, like it's not about like releasing the game and let it live there, but for us, it just started when we released the game. So it was a very small scope. There wasn't a lot of content. You could only play for 1 or 2 days, and then you burn through everything. But then we decided to do like this live operations and see it more like as a service. So we really like the term games as a service, and there also where PlayFab came then in and helped us to develop all these features on top of the initial version.
I also want to point out that you guys were working with PlayFab when you were a small studio before you were acquired by Ubisoft or any of that. And James earlier was talking about, hey, if you're a student or a small game developer, just go here and sign up. And I think he's proven that time and time again. I mean, he's kind of like what I do for customers. He does that with developers. He goes out and says, "This you can do this," and hooks you up with the right people. So that's really important to know. It doesn't matter what size you are. There's tools here for you. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, as I said, back then we were like a very small team. We didn't have any knowledge, and it's just super easy. They have like certain SDKs for Unity and other platforms, and we could just plug it in, do certain calls to the PlayFab platform, and it basically worked out of the box. So in a matter of a few weeks, we integrated all these kind of things like to connect with your friends, to store the cloud save, and enable us to also build more cooperative multiplayer features in a matter of weeks, which we wouldn't be able if we didn't have like a tool like PlayFab. Okay. And this really helped us.
What's next for Colibri?
Yeah, so we are last year, we kind of started to build a lot of new games. So we are trying out very small games, trying to get them out as fast as possible and test if they are successful. If some of the metrics are looking very well, then we are kind of thinking about if we should continue developing the game. And if not, we will just start like a new game. So this will be our strategy also for this year, building a lot of games, iterating and find a good next hit. But also we want to focus on continuing Idle Miner Tycoon, since it's already out there now for 4.5 years, but we still think there's a lot of potential, and we are still doing these weekly updates and still supporting it. And that's also a big focus of Colibri Games in the following years.
Well, I want to congratulate you on an amazing, I'm going to say it, half decade of game development. That's really extraordinary. and of course, being acquired by Ubisoft. You guys have a bright future ahead of you. Really appreciate it. Oliver Loeffler, CTO and co-founder of Colibri Games. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks as well.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Yes. Check out those PlayFab social channels. Check out playfab.com, PlayFab. and you can see who all those inaugural award winners are. And congrats to those who took home the awards.
So hopefully you learned a little bit about the what we can offer you is from the Xbox side, just how game developers work. And it's amazing when you think about PlayFab, all the different, there's mobile games, of course, running on it. There's console games on it. The PlayFab is running the back end for games that some games aren't even on Xbox. So that's what people
it's always
forget.
just interesting hearing that, people who might not have tremendous dev experience, how this is able to help them put features into their game that they would never have really known where to start. And you could be in your dorm room and create a really cool game. And you want to have leaderboards, you want to have multiplayer, you want to have achievements, you want to have all these other sort of modern features that are standard in all the games you play. Well, you don't have to build those from scratch. That we have a service here that,
the PlayFab, I don't think James mentioned this because he and I were talking. They kind of have a little bit of a saying when they go visit game developers. The saying is, "You make the fun, we make it run." So
there you go. And that's the fun part, right?
Yeah. So everybody kind of do what they do. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. A lot of interviews this week. So thank you for all of my guests. Jeff, thank you for stepping in and doing your Yakuza interview. And of course, the medium
I'd
as
love
well.
to do that.
I know.
There's no place I'd rather be.
In fact, I'm actually refreshing all the time on my podcast app to see if all of a sudden there's going to be you're hosting a Yakuza podcast. I just expect that at this point.
That's actually not a bad idea.
I know.
Who I could call blonde nerd Brit. She's a bigger fan than I am even. But I actually like that idea. All right, I'm gonna put that up here somewhere. We'll get there.
Just saying.
I know a few folks.
Thank you, by the way. I experimented earlier this week for those people that are on Clubhouse. I did a Clubhouse session earlier this week. It's kind of an invite-only social app available only on iOS right now. But it was a lot of fun. You dropped in for a little while.
That was cool to see. I just kind of wanted to see what was going on. And there was
I got into full-on talk show mode there, didn't I?
Oh, for sure. In fact, when you left, a lot of the air went out of the room. And so we realized, who's going to step in here?
Oh,
and it was Haley, who works on the Gears team, that sort of took over hosting roles. She was great. So, I think it's an interesting space. We'll see where it goes. I think a lot of new social media starts off in one place and it ends up somewhere else. And so, who knows what it'll end up being, but certainly interesting to have conversations at least right now.
We've, So anyway, so I'm playing around on that. Otherwise, I feel like the show has gone on quite a bit because we had so many interviews this week. We're working on even more interviews next week. It's funny. I said, I think it was last week or the week before, we were talking about all the interviews I had coming up, and some news site picked that up and kind of said that we have a lot of shows coming. And I was a little, they didn't really.
Is that a story? Every week.
I don't know if I was unclear, they misunderstood, a little column A, a little column B, but it was like, no, I'm going to have a lot of guests on this show. Is what I was getting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had a couple short shows to start the year. They were like 30 minutes, and here we are. This one is over an hour.
Yeah. Well north of an hour. But the good news is if you're listening to this on whatever your favorite audio podcast option is, we have a full YouTube version of it where you can see the guests. We'll show you, gameplay in on some of the games. But also it's also time-stamped or chapters. You can just click right to the section you want. We're going to get you, our job is to just get you where you want to go as quickly as possible.
Exactly. And if you're already here, then maybe you don't have a destination. Maybe you're
maybe you wanted to hear chicken sandwiches. Maybe you wanted to hear about Yakuza. I haven't talked about toilets in a couple weeks. Here's
Toilet Cast.
I'm going to start it on Clubhouse. Toilet Talk on Clubhouse.
Toilet Talk on Clubhouse. I need to be there because I have many strong opinions.
We are like-minded in this area. So we're going to,
that we are.
Anyway, listen, as Jeff said, we got a huge week for Game Pass this week with the Medium coming out. If you're on Game Pass subscribers, check that out, please. Also, I'll kind of PS it at the end here because everyone's going to probably ask about it. We talked last week about Xbox Live Gold is going free for free-to-play games. We'll talk about that in the future when we have more details about that. We had a pretty good week with earnings. Apparently, I learned, I don't know about you, Jeff, but apparently Bethesda is now a monetary unit. So, like 2 Bethesdas or 3 Bethesdas.
Oh, yes. I think I read that. I was so wrapped up in this GameStop stuff.
Oh, that's crazy, isn't it?
I learned what shorting a stock means now. I actually was sitting there and watched the Vox I learned a lot of things from Vox.
Right.
So it's a good explainer there. And I am staying away from all of that.
Do you have your Robinhood app opening? Are you?
Don't wager anything that you can't afford to lose. That's
just
the one
assume
thing
it's going to be lost. That's the most important thing. Be
Some
careful out there.
All right.
All right,
Yes.
we're going to wrap it up now. Jeff, thank you again for joining me this week. I know you're busy. We're both busy, but I want to thank you for joining us and
Wouldn't miss it.
It's always great. Next week we'll be back. We'll maybe have more interviews. I'm sure we will. Working on some really cool stuff for the coming months. That's what I'm saying for this show. Okay, people that aren't listening.
For this show, we don't control anything else.
I don't control
Literally
anything else.
nothing.
So just check us out, Jeff. Why don't you tell people what to do if they happen to be watching this?
Please, like, subscribe, and leave those comments. We find that YouTube is the area where most people are leaving comments. We love to read them. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. And so we want to give that back, and we want to know what you want to see and coming up on future episodes.
Should we do a thumbnail for this week, since that's kind of the thing to do? Should we do that?
Yeah. Okay. I'll turn towards you, and I'll be like,
oh, wrong way.
We got to see the cat. Yeah. That's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Okay.
Yeah. Survey Yaka's a thing.
All right, there we go. We got something for you. If you have any suggestions for the thumbnail, let me know. Drop them in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and all that stuff. All right, gang. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye, everybody.